missing, but hopefully they trickle in. We have enough for a quorum at the moment, right?
Yep.
All right. We'll start with the long, boring part. The right page. As a preliminary matter, this is Brian Sullivan, Chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons are anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, I call your name. Please respond in the affirmative. Brooke Moore.
I am here.
Dave Iverson.
I am here.
Rima Sherry.
Here.
Allison Mitchell.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond affirmative. Tucker Holland.
Here.
Eleanor Antonetti.
Here.
We have anticipated speakers potentially on the agenda. We have Judy Barrett.
Here.
Barry Frankton.
Here.
And Tyler Merritt.
Here.
Great.
Is Jen not attending?
She should be on in a minute. She was having a computer issue. She's restarting.
Oh dear, another internet issue. Okay, thanks.
Great. Thanks, Barry. This open meeting of the Nantucket Affordable Housing Trust is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate transmission of COVID-19 virus, we've been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the Governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which can be found posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. For this meeting, the Affordable Housing Trust is convening via conference via Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that the meeting is being recorded and all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda for this public meeting. Before we do so, please permit me to cover some of the ground rules for effective, clear communication of our business to ensure accurate meeting minutes. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, we'll work through members of the board and registered participants, inviting each by name to provide any comment or question. Please hold until your name is called. Please remember to mute your phone or your microphone when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly. For any response, please wait until the floor is yielded to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. After panelists and members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged through the chair to speak. With that, we'll move to the first item on the agenda, which is an approval of the agenda.
May I just say one thing quickly?
Yes.
Penny's about to join. One thing, I'm going to send her the link. And secondly, I need to amend the agenda. I screwed up the Roman numeral thing, so it's a very minor thing, but just when you approve it, please approve it as amended to correct the Roman numerals.
Also, Mr. Chair, we are pushing the closing formation assistance program item to our next meeting next week.
Okay, so I'm not going to get the Roman numerals off the top very quickly, but item as listed, number 7, will get pushed to next week.
So move to approve the agenda as noted with amendments.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Allison by roll call. Dave Iverson?
Aye.
Allison Mitchell?
Aye.
Rima Sherry?
Aye.
Brooke Moore?
Aye.
And Brian Sullivan's an aye. The next item on the agenda is an approval of minutes. I believe there's an amendment to some of the minutes. Is that correct, Eleanor?
Yes. So three things up front. So Christy had an amendment to the March 2nd. I need to amend some typos on April 20 and March 16th, very minor. I noted myself as present at March 16th. I was not. And April 20th, I forgot some language in the Ccap approval, subject to return on one of those Ccaps. So those are typos that'll be corrected with the approved minutes. And then, Brian, you were not present for April 20th. So we're approving amended minutes for March 2, March 16, and April 20, and the others are as presented unless other people have amendments. Sorry.
Okay, great. So do you want to break those out? Like I won't be
Yes,
voting on April
I
20th.
hate to do that to you, but it's better to do it that way, I think.
Okay, so if I can get this right, so we first will do, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes that are not amended, and those are the weeks of February 18th, March 9, April 1st. Is that correct, Eleanor?
Yes, February 18. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do 5 things once. Yes, February 18, well done. March 9 and April 1st are not amended.
Okay.
So move to accept those 3.
Who was that, Brooke?
Yep.
That was
Sorry,
Brooke,
Eleanor. Yeah.
And a second? Second from Rima by roll call, Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Allison Mitchell,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye. Now we'll take up the minutes of, this is going to really test me, March 9th, April 20th, and March 16th.
Correct.
As one chunk as amended by Eleanor. You're looking for a motion to approve those.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Second from Rima, moved by Brooke, by roll call, Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Allison Mitchell,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
and I will abstain because I did not, was not at one of those.
Okay, and do you guys know if Christy is coming?
She is going to be here closer to 2 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So now we have the very thorough, thank you, Judy, draft document of the HPP that was delivered on Friday. I think that there's a lot of material there. I know personally I need more time with it, but I'd like to open it up for a statement from Judy to kind of present the document, and then hear some items from board members, and then we'll make a decision on how we want to move this forward in the upcoming week and weeks. Judy?
Certainly. Thank you. It's nice to see everybody again. So you do have the draft. Tyler has actually put together some slides to sort of walk through the plan, and I think it may be most efficient for him to do that. It'll kind of help structure the presentation. It's not super long, but I think it will be useful. So if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I think I'll ask Tyler to open those slides, and if he doesn't currently have co-host privileges, perhaps someone could give them to him so he can share some slides.
Great, thank you, Judy. Tyler, if you're ready, go ahead and run with it. If not, we'll wait for your access.
Yep. Yes, I just became the co-host. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks to the Trust for having us. I am Tyler. Like Judy said, I'm basically just going to go over like a really brief, like 10 to 15 minute summary of the plan that you guys have had on Friday. I also want to bring up that you should have also received our completed comment resolution matrix featuring all the comments that you all gave to us. And so if you have any questions, comments, areas where you want to slow down and go into more detail in the plan, we can do that. But first, I will just give this brief summary, then we can dive into more detail where you would like. So let's share PowerPoint, view. Okay, everyone seeing that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, and I mentioned I'm the primary presenter. We've also got a few slides from our colleagues over at JM Goldson. I'm gonna at some point invite Barry Fratkin to talk about a couple of the sections that he contributed. But so starting off, just a quick overview of the plan. This is very similar to what I presented in the last webinar, but it starts off with the housing needs assessment, We look at, sort of all the data, all the census data, all the things we got from interviews, all the many data sources we have to look at the demographic profile, look at the housing market, housing stock, sales prices, rents, things like that. And then we have a section on barriers to development, which are constraints such as infrastructure or environmental regulations, things like that. So all of that together provides a holistic picture of what the housing needs on the island are, what the opportunities for future affordable housing production are and where. And then from those, we derive our set of goals, including numerical and also more qualitative things. And from those, we derive the strategies where we sort of lay out a few more concrete actions that we're recommending to the town to meet those goals. And then I added that we have a few pretty hefty appendices. We have a lot of, we have summaries for all our community engagement. We have summaries of the potential affordable housing sites that I know we've discussed a lot with the trust. And we have a set of maps that are appendices for now. In the final draft, they'll be throughout the document, but for now, we've sort of lumped them all into an appendix. So all of those materials we can talk about if you would like. So now I'm just going to go through each section and give sort of like a really high-level summary of what is contained within each. So these are the findings from the housing needs assessment. I just pulled out some of the more notable trends. For demographics, the island's turning towards smaller households and fewer families. The public school enrollment data was interesting, with a quickly increasing proportion of non-white minority students in the schools. Another trend we observed was there is a significant population of undocumented immigrants on the island. How many, the official numbers don't say, sort of, by the very nature of that population being undocumented, but we heard that a lot in our community interviews and feedback. The year-round population of the island is increasing, but there are also fewer total households. The number of households has been steadily decreasing as the year-round population has been increasing. And for some housing findings, the housing stock of the island is overwhelmingly single-family detached ownership units. The vacancy rates are extremely high, mostly due to just how many seasonal units, units that are not occupied year-round. There's a lot of reported issues of the overcrowding of individual units and homes sort of throughout the island. And another notable trend is the very high rents and housing costs in relation to income. So high housing cost burdens.
So Tyler,
yes.
What do you do in the report to put a finer point on, like you have two very contradictory statements: smaller households, fewer families, increased year-round population, fewer total households.
Well, actually, yeah, now that you mention that, I think I actually think that first point is partially wrong. I think I was getting at something else and miswrote it. The average household size is growing. I think
it's larger. It's larger.
Right.
The fewer family thing is true. So
Right.
I think the trend that speaks to is more people living together in fewer non-family households.
In year-round units.
In year-round units, yeah. I think that's a more.
I think we need. I think we need to massage this a bit and to give it a more accurate depiction of what's here.
Tucker, if I can make a suggestion or recommendation to Judy Tyler, is there an opportunity for, rather than us, kind of edit by committee here, to get an editable document that the trust members can deliver everything to Tucker to work through?
Absolutely, that's fine.
Great.
Sure, of course.
I do
Yeah.
want to, I do want to continue through the slides in the presentation. I don't want to stop, but
Right.
I think to get a cumulative collective on the entire document, like Tucker just picked up, it's important.
No, I think that's fine, and I appreciate the correction. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, we can definitely do that. Although, as we go through the presentation today, if something does come to mind, we'll take note of that as well, of course. But yeah, I think that's a good idea to have another round of edits in writing from the trust if you are interested in doing that.
Please. Great. Thank you.
Then, yeah, the final section of the housing needs assessment is the section on barriers. This throughout the process and in other HPPs, it's always kind of important to keep reminding people that barriers is not meant in a sort of negative sense, even though it could be interpreted that way. That's just sort of what this section is called in HPPs, and it can kind of be a little confusing when we're talking about environmental resources as barriers, but it's just something that constrains where housing can be built, So that's just going to be a significant one on Nantucket. I included this graph chart. I'm not sure which it is that shows just how much of the island's area is conserved or developed. So that little gray sliver is open to development. So most of the land on Nantucket is either permanent conservation land or has been built already. So that's a major constraint. Infrastructure and utilities, where's the sewer, where's the transportation opportunities, that's a big one. And then there's also a significant amount devoted to zoning in this section, that controls, what legally, can be constructed. So, and I think the biggest takeaway from the zoning for the HPP's purposes are that there's very little in there that fits the state's definition of affordable housing, which is income restricted at 80% of the area median income and below. That figure does not appear in the zoning bylaw very much. And you are constructing SHI eligible units. That's not preventing you from doing so, but I think one of the biggest takeaways is that there's a lot more opportunities to create incentives for those units to be produced under zoning. So then that leads into the goals. If you all recall, I think before the second webinar, we sort of had a meeting about goals and strategies. And I forget whose suggestion it was, but someone in this meeting suggested sort of paring down the goals into just a few very wide-reaching, overarching goals, and then having smaller sub-goals underneath all of those. So that is what I did for that, and I've kept that structure all the way through to this draft because I think it works fairly well. So these are the 4 sort of macro goals that are meant to cover just the wide range of smaller goals that an HPP might address. Preserve, diversify, and expand year-round housing stock. So, smaller goals within that could be, focus, on more age-restricted units or focus on units, in this area of town. That's things like that. Those would go under there. Number 2, increase focus on affordability at all levels, sort of like what I was talking about before. There should be a greater emphasis on housing at that 80% AMI level and lower. And I think currently the most common number in the bylaw is 150% of AMI, unless I'm mistaken. And so, I mean, that is, we're not saying to, get rid of those or, don't do anything above 80% AMI, because on Nantucket, that is a legitimate need. We're just saying to, expand and also look at a wider range of incomes. And then the final category is engagement and outreach, education and partnerships. That covers strategies like the regional partnership strategy that's required by DHCD, which is always a kind of a weird one in Nantucket. And also, just community outreach and communication, which is its own strategy. So the next slide are those strategies. So there's a lot of them. There's 16, something like that. And most of these I went into in some detail during the webinar. So I'm not going to, take the time to, describe any one of these in particular in super excruciating detail, unless any trust member wants to sort of dive into one where you have questions or comments. Yeah, I'll just leave these up here. I don't know if there's any in particular I want to pull out. You have heard, I think you've heard me talk about every single one of these, either at the webinar or one of our previous meetings. So in the interest of time, I'll just let you guys pick any that want to ask questions or comments about at the end of my presentation. Okay, so next I'm going to invite Barry to unmute and go over a few summary slides talking about the summary of the last webinar, which will be attached as an appendix to the final document. Somewhere along the way, the version you got, it got lost in the shuffle somewhere, but we have this summary. We can send it to you after the meeting today. It is supposed to be in there attached as an appendix. So we're going to briefly touch on it, but just letting you guys know that you will have that as part of the plan. And I will turn it over to Barry to talk a bit more about that and some other sections of the plan that he worked on.
Great. Thank you, Tyler. So yeah, I just wanted to cover some of the summary materials that we put together from the last webinar, which was on March 30th. And for that webinar, we had 34 community members. More than half were over age 55. And we presented the draft goals and strategies. We also included some materials on those strategic future housing locations, both public and private. Tyler, if you want to go to the next slide. And just a quick summary of some of the polling results we had from that webinar. You can see the most popular sort of viewpoints were, I want to have more affordable housing options. I'm concerned about traffic congestion. I want to have more options for people who work here to live here. And I want to promote more housing options in general. A couple notes from the chat that we got. I believe that having affordable options for year-round people is most important. And in terms of the selected sites, the majority of these sites make perfect sense. However, consideration should be made for parking and commuting routes, as much of the island traffic is individuals commuting to work daily. Next slide, please. And so just wanted to mention another section you'll find in the appendix. This is a more detailed breakdown of those selected sites. So first, for the private sites, you can see there are 6. Those are shown on those inset maps below. And this is an example on the upper right here of what one of those sites looks like. We've got an air photo. We include the address, parcel IDs, zoning, whether or not water and sewer infrastructure are available, current ownership and acreage, and then a little discussion of some potential constraints in terms of infrastructure. And in this case, there's a priority habitat area that overlaps with those parcels. Okay, next one. And then finally, the public sites. This one on the right is showing the old fire station, just highlights the fact that the sewer line does run across that site. So that's a potential constraint for that easement there. But if you have any questions on those, please let us know. And if you think of any other details or edits to those maps that you think might be needed, I'm happy to make those changes.
All right, thanks, Barry. And I'll briefly come back, although we are mostly done with this slideshow. I just wanted to highlight some changes from the previous draft that we made in response to your comments in the comment resolution matrix that we received. We added some new data and maps, some that were requested by your comments, such as going into more detail on the countries of origin that are represented among the residents of Nantucket, some new maps on some affordability gaps. We made plenty of corrections, especially in the section on utilities and infrastructure, where I had made a few mistakes about where exactly those pesky water and sewer lines are. That section has been largely rewritten. And there were a lot of comments regarding concerns about the community comments that we were presenting in those appendices for the focus groups and the survey. the community survey. So I tried to go back in there, and for those sections, make it really clear up front, put sort of I guess a disclaimer, you could call it, that, you know, these are, you know, views repeated from the public. They don't necessarily reflect the views of the town or the consultants, and they weren't modified. And they're meant to represent community perspectives unfiltered. So hopefully I made that a lot clearer so that people aren't, you know, reading something that somebody said in that section and attributing it to the town. I think that was, you know, a major concern, that it wasn't clear enough. So, you know, hopefully that's addressed better now. And then some new appendices. I think the most significant ones being what Barry just talked about. Those were not in the plan the last time you saw it. So yeah, and I think we're going to talk a lot about next steps, but some things we have yet to do. Probably the biggest thing that is not in there that we plan on doing is there's a lot of tables that focus on the census tract level. And, you know, Judy and I have talked a lot about a few different ways to present those, because it is kind of confusing to have to flip back to the map to reference what exactly those are. It's kind of hard to give them names because they don't line up super well with village boundaries most of the time. So I think what we're going to end up doing is replacing those with maps. So that's probably the biggest change in the body of the plan that we have not made yet. The content won't change. It's just those same tables are going to be converted to visual form for easier reading, and just general cleaning up and polishing, and incorporate any feedback that you folks give today and in the future. So
I have a question on kind of identifying the map, and as we're working through it, and the use of this document other than with DHCD. There are this system, which makes perfect sense to me for its purpose, sending it to DHCD is a great utilization of kind of the data points. But while you're going through versions and editing, can we maintain kind of a local nomenclature version that, as we kind of share it with the public, they'll easily be able to identify, well, when it's Sconset, Tom Nevers? Is there a way to kind of cross that over?
We can add the neighborhood, village, or center names to the reference map. But I think I just don't want people to have to constantly flip back to a reference map, when really it would be very easy for us to just convert the data to map form. It would be sort of a graphic. It's not going to have a whole lot of detail on it except the data. We can add the village names. And if you want us to, we can preserve the data in a table under the map so that people can see the actual information. But I think that this will be a more effective way to communicate differences across the island statistically.
I think the table is an excellent idea, because some people are visual learners and some are table learners. So I think that's an excellent suggestion.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, so that is the end of my slides. I will turn it back over to the trust. However, you all want to proceed, happy to answer any questions, go back to any section of the plan or part of the slideshow. You know, we're interested in hearing your feedback and where you want to go from here.
Great. So
I can stop sharing my screen for now.
Rima has her hand up, I think, but I can't see anybody else right now.
Great.
Penny, I'm sorry.
Yep. So thank you for the presentation. First, we'll come to Rima for some of her comments. And Penny, I think you just joined, but originally the discussion was we're going to kind of look through the slides, get an understanding, recognizing it's a very, very full document. We're going to get an editable version that we, rather than go by committee today, we'll deliver everything back at a future time. Rima?
Yeah, sort of pertaining to what Tucker was talking about with the initial bullet points. The paragraph that's really stood out to me was on page 9 at the bottom. And basically what it said was that there are less houses and more people. That's my, but I think, what?
Year-round houses?
Yes, less year-round houses and more people.
Yep.
And I think that is a really important point.
Yep.
And I think that maybe that's sort of what you're trying to say in that first bullet point, where there's, you know, less families, but, you know, more households,
yep.
You know, that whole thing. But I think that that is something that we need to concentrate on and really, billboard, because that's an important finding.
Yep. Thank you.
And I sent some CRM stuff to you guys, but
Thank you.
that's it.
Thank you, Rima. Penny?
Yes, I was just wondering if somebody could shed some light on when we can expect the results from the 2020 census.
Well, the apportionment data are out at this point. We're expecting some initial results from so-called summary file 1, which is what has been called to us old people for probably 40 years. I think in a few months, you'll start to see more rolling out. August, maybe, I think is sort of the timeline I've seen.
So do we have the luxury of waiting for more current data on this report before it's finalized?
I don't think you do if you want to preserve your existing approval period. You see, the thing is, Penny, that it's not everything that's going to come out. It takes, they roll it out in series. So, you may get an initial run that includes some additional basic demographic data, maybe a finer age breakdown. You might get a finer race breakdown, but the housing sets, I'm not sure we're going to see until later in the year.
So when we do this again in 5 years, will we be using the 2020 data?
Well, I'm assuming, it's up to you folks, but I'm assuming you're going to want to use the most current information, which is not Census 2020. It will be the American Community Survey for, 2019 to 2024 probably, or perhaps even a little bit later.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Tucker, do you have any commentary that you'd like to share at the moment?
No, I wanted to point out the discrepancy. I think that I like your suggestion, Mr. Chair, of that, this is obviously a dense document. I'd like to get, comments, make sure that everybody has a sufficient time to go through it and provide comments. And then perhaps we can provide them like in an edited version that can be a red line effectively, because we don't want to eliminate anything that is required by DHCD. At the same time, I think there's probably a desire to try to make this both meet the purposes of the DHCD approval, but as well really be a user-friendly document for folks locally here. So anyway, I think maybe we should just talk a little bit about timeline and when we want to get things back, like internally, and then Judy, maybe you can also elaborate a little bit on where it needs to go and the timetable for that once the trust is happy with where it's at.
Well, as you probably remember from the last time, there is a public meeting required for the planning board and the select board to approve the plan. Following that, and that's either 2 meetings or 1. Most communities I've worked with try to do that jointly because it just makes a more effective conversation, but that's clearly the island's call. From there, we will need a letter signed probably by Libby indicating the date that the Board of Selectmen approved the plan and submitting it formally to DHCD. When you give us that letter and the plan is ready to go, we will submit it for you to Phil DiMartino, who is the official HPP guru at DHCD, and he will move it through the review process. That's typically how we do it. Now, they have a number of days to review these plans. As you probably recall, last time it was quite fast.
Yeah.
We just did a plan for a community in Western Mass that was, I think, 3 weeks instead of, a few days. But it's just clear because of the pandemic and so forth. Things are probably moving a little bit more slowly at DHCD, but not much. And I've kind of stayed in touch with him anyway through this process. So I'm not expecting an issue, at least, well, let me put it this way. The draft we've given you, I would not expect issues with DHCD's approval.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds great. So, Mr. Chair, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud a little bit, but I think in terms of getting the select board and the planning board to either do a joint session or independently, that's probably something realistically that's going to have to take place after town meeting, which is June 5th. To me, it might make sense that if folks, to the extent that they haven't already had a chance to go through it in depth, but over the course of this next week to provide internal comments to me, which I can consolidate and then return back, we can perhaps, to the extent the board would like to talk about anything further at our meeting next Tuesday. We do have another meeting next Tuesday. We can, have a discussion, but provide feedback immediately following that, such that we'd be teed up to have those planning board and select board discussions in June and submit to DHCD certainly by July, which would be 3 or 4 months in advance of our current expiration.
Penny?
Yeah, just, I started to work on it on the Dropbox link. Is that how you want us to do this? And then just share it with you? Like, what are the logistics?
I think we provided a comments resolution matrix again when we sent the draft.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
And
I'll
that's
send it to you
just,
again, Penny.
I'm sorry?
I will send that to you again. It's a Word document.
Yeah, I was just doing it right in Dropbox, but that's okay. I can move those comments over.
the advantage, I mean, there are multiple advantages to the CRM, not the least of which is we can tell you what we did with the comments.
Right.
And
That's
so
okay.
we would like you to use that again. It just is very helpful for everybody involved to know, here are the comments we got, here's how we address them.
I got it.
Is it possible though, I think Brian had asked this, Judy, like, can we get call it the Word version of the text? Because it just might make making suggestions in the CRM easier.
If you're going to copy paste into the CRM, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
What I really don't want is for people to start redlining the document.
Fine, but if it'd be a lot easier to copy and paste certain things.
I have no problem with that at all. Just no red line. But I mean, the CRM, you want to copy paste, I get it. It's fine. We can do that. So what we'll probably have to do is pull it apart a little bit and put in a Dropbox kind of multiple sections that are in Word. But that's not a problem.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so if we're looking to set timelines that's realistic for everybody to be able to make reviews, go back to the CRM, is next Tuesday realistic for board members? Do we need a little bit for our next meeting? Can everybody work with that? I know it's a crazy time of year. Not seeing any objectional faces. Tucker, will that work for you and your schedule as far as Monday, putting a document together to redeliver, or I know Wednesdays are hard with.
Well, I think what Judy is suggesting is that everyone would be, completing their individual CRM form and providing those. So it wouldn't be an issue to get those all to Judy and her team by next Tuesday.
Okay.
We could plan to send them following the meeting and any discussion we had that day.
Okay, great. Perfect. Excellent.
That would work fine. So if we have that from you, I mean, it's always hard, like, to say, okay, so here's the next deadline, because I don't know what you're going to say. But assuming that their comments we can kind of manage about as well as we did, the first time around, I would think it would be, probably 2 weeks to turn it around. I would think that would be reasonable. I do know one thing I want to be careful about. And Tyler, this is certainly no criticism of you. I always think about these things like the fourth time after I've read something, but I think when we're talking about a lot of the data that are from the Census Bureau about household characteristics or whatever, we probably need to almost be redundant in stressing that it's year round. Because, we just live with this data, right? It's live, eat, sleep, and breathe it. But not everybody does. And I hope to God they don't, because it kind of changes your life. But I think we just need to be really clear to people over and over again, year round. Like anything about households is year round, anything, because that's the ultimate unit for the Census Bureau is the household. Everything revolves around the household. So, that's always going to be year round people. So I think I want to just kind of read it that way myself too, again, which, again, it's this conversation we're having now. It's dawning on me. I better make sure that's clear.
Well, and it's not only year round. I would think it's also census reported, maybe, I don't, and I'm not leaping to undocumented, but the fact that our school population is going up hugely, obviously, flies in the face of family sizes shrinking.
Right.
So yeah.
I mean, there's definitely an issue there, and there's only so much we can do to close it. But I think we need to acknowledge for people.
Yes.
Some of these disconnects are, we can't document the family because the Census Bureau doesn't report it. But here's what your school data say. What do you think? I get it.
Yeah, it doesn't change our 10% requirement or anything, but in order for people here, I think, to have confidence in the report, we need to make sure we're acknowledging what we know.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
I get it.
So, I mean, to me, what's the definition of family and what's the definition of household? Because there can be multiple families in a household, right? Yes. I think that having that clearly stated somewhere is critical, because I think when people think of a household, if you're a single family living in a house, you think my family's my household. They don't make the connection to a 5-bedroom house can have 5 families and be one household.
So it's so good that you bring this up. There are census tables that get at the concept of subfamily. I don't think that it's an accurate count in Nantucket, but it's certainly something we can identify, that some number of households are identified as having subfamilies. Subfamilies tend to be comprised of the following makeup, how many kids and things we can talk about it. But I think because of this larger issue of what's documented and what's not, it's awfully hard to sort of get at what's really going on. But it's a good, work.
We can speculate from the data, which shows the number of people is going up and the number of households is going down.
Right.
Where the heck are these? And the family size is going down.
Right.
So it is a logical conclusion that I think we need to lead people to more directly, whatever's permissible under the HPP guidelines of using the data.
Well, it certainly leads there, but I think it also, for us as housing people, it also really raises the question, what are the affordability targets that Nantucket should be focusing on? Because, Tyler's right that your zoning talks about 150% of AMI, and I know why it does that, and I'm not debating it, just is what it is. And zoning may not be the best tool to get at the real need that exists on Nantucket. Because if the real need is at the 30 to 50% of AMI, then no zoning bylaw is going to fix that. I'm sorry. It just isn't going to happen. You're talking about richly subsidized units. And so I think we just need to be clear about that too. Zoning can do a lot of things, but it can't fix, issues that are kind of inherent in a capitalist economy. It just can't fix all those problems. So we need to be conscious of when does subsidy really make the difference, and for whom.
Ding, 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 ding.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Tyler.
No problem. Do you want one of us to join the meeting next week? I don't think that's in our calendars, but I can if you want.
It'd be great if you could.
Why don't I hop on next week? I have a meeting at noon on third Tuesday. It's kind of a standard thing for me, but it ends at 1. So what time are you guys meeting?
1.
1 o'clock.
Okay. So if you forgive me for joining 10 minutes late, I'll just hop on.
Great.
Thank you.
Jen and Barry, thank you too for all the hard work to this point. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Fabulous.
Awesome. So we'll close this item.
Okay.
We'll carry more till next week. And then
okay. All right.
Thank you,
Thank
gang.
you.
Does that mean we leave now? Does that
If you-
say we
you're
can leave
welcome.
goodbye?
You can
Look, you're
say.
welcome to stay,
All right.
but you
thank
don't have to.
All right. I got other work to do, but thanks. I'll see you next week.
All right, bye now.
Bye-bye.
All right, thank you all.
Next item, we have a grant request from Habitat for the phase 2 of the Benjamin Drive project. This was circulated a little while ago, but Tucker, do you want to kind of make a presentation on behalf of Habitat?
Sure. Everyone will recall that Habitat is working on a 3-unit project at Benjamin Drive, a duplex and single family home. It's really a very collaborative effort amongst really all of the housing agencies, if you will, on the island. The land originally came from the Housing Authority, Housing Nantucket, granted an easement over property its own. Habitat is obviously creating the housing for its clients, and the trust is providing the funding, which is what we're here to talk about today. You all will recall during the budgeting process that we've had $975,000 earmarked for this project. These are the first units actually that Habitat will create that will be SHI eligible. We just had state visitors down last week from DHCD, including Alana Murphy, to do the site visit for this project. And within days, by the end of the week, last week, Alana had issued the project eligibility letter for this. So everything went very well. They're moving right along here. And so today, they simply want to secure the first phase of the funding, which is $450,000 of their total projected cost. They're going to come back, later the second half of this year, probably in the fall timeframe, about the funding for the balance. And I would just say that while 975 has been their working number for a while on this project, I think everyone is aware that construction costs, materials costs have gone up like significantly. And so in the end, they may be seeking a little bit more than 975, depending on what the market environment, if you will, is at that point. So we want to be cognizant of what the ultimate needs might be for this project relative to anything that we want to go to the CPC for in their fall application in September. So all the details are laid out in terms of the uses of the funds in the memo in the packet. And I just would request that the board support the funding grant for 450 at this point toward these projects. I'll also mention that Habitat has, if you will, put in 150 of funds it had on hand already to do the initial site work and bring in power and so forth. So this is the next phase.
Thank you, Tucker. I really do appreciate your commentary about the inflationary costs that we're seeing in building materials too. I see it in my professional life that it's a hard thing to quantify right now, and we're going to have to be aware of that as all of these projects move forward. So I guess, is there any questions, conversation, or commentary from the board on the Habitat? Seeing none, look for a motion. Penny?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Great. Is there a second? I saw Dave's lips move. So Dave's second. By roll call, Dave Iverson.
Aye.
Rima Sherry.
Aye.
Brooke Moore.
Aye.
Penny Dye.
Aye.
Allison Mitchell.
Aye.
And Brian Sullivan, aye. Great, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Let's see. Item number. So we have CCAP applications. The first one is number 74, Mr. Stepanov. Thank you for joining us. We'll go through the application. Does anybody have any questions or commentary or thoughts on the application? Kind of seeing none. Mr. Stepanov, do you have anything you'd like to share with us or say, or?
No, not at this time, except for, I've been listening to what you guys were talking about and about the year-round, increasing the year-round population and decreasing households. That is exactly the case with the house that, I'm trying to get or closing on. Same thing, there is a family that's moving off island, family of 2 people. And, now that I get it, it's a 3-bedroom house. What I plan on doing with, remainder of bedrooms is, helping out my friends who lived here for a long time and year-round residents, so it's just a little thing that I wanted to add to what you guys were talking about on that topic. So, but yeah, otherwise, I wasn't even sure if my input would be needed here. So,
Well, we appreciate you attending. Thank you. And it's always nice to see a face with who the application is and how we're able to help.
So I would move to approve closing cost assistance up to $15,000 pending the final closing costs.
Second.
Okay, so I have a second from Dave and a third from Penny, and we'll look for a vote by roll call. Dave Iverson.
Aye.
Rima Sherry.
Aye.
Brooke Moore.
Aye.
Penny Dye.
Aye.
Allison Mitchell.
Aye.
And Brian Sullivan's aye. Thank you, Mr. Stepanoff. You're all set. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Good luck with your closing.
Congrats.
thank you.
We will move on to the next item, which is this wonderful picture of, I'm assuming, Mrs. Martinez's child.
It is my youngest.
I appreciate that photo. Thank you for sharing it with us. So on this application, it's for property on Larrabee Lane. Again, does anybody have any questions about the application or anything they saw or read in it? Okay. Ms. Martinez, do you have any commentary or anything you'd like to share with us?
No, I don't. I just want to say thank you. This is a great opportunity for us as first-time home buyers. It's a big deal for us.
Awesome. Well, it's a big deal for us too. So thank you for kind of being here. We appreciate it. I'll look for a motion from the board. Brooke?
So I have a question. Because this is a land purchase, should we word this differently, Eleanor, based on, I was going to suggest something along the lines of, I move to approve up to $15,000 to be used for both the land and final closing cost on the house.
We can do that. It's, I just want to say, I have no problem with that. If you guys are comfortable with it. The discussion was to be continued from your March 16th meeting, at which I was not present, but I went, as I wrote the minutes from listening to the, probably paid more attention more carefully to that meeting than anything, because I had to listen to everything and rewind and re-listen. There was a lot of interesting discussion, and you guys didn't come up with a full-on resolution because you wanted to wait for me. I'm fine with doing it this way, as so long as she can, we'll do it the way we did with that other one, which is for the initial closing, she'll use X amount, which is likely to be quite a bit less than what she'll need for the construction, assuming it's a modular or whatever it ends up being. So yeah, to a max. Yeah, so word it however you want, Brooke. Just do it slowly so I can keep up.
Okay, so
before you keep going, Brooke, I think it is
Yeah.
important that we do put on the agenda for a future meeting kind of a resolution of how we're going to adjust the applications. So it's identified that'll, for lack of a better term, it'll be a rolling amount up to the 15,000. Tucker?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we had determined at the prior meeting with the Steels that, all of these costs, even though they're broken into two, fall under our current
Cap, yeah.
cap, yeah, and program. They're all in all of these items are listed on the closing cost estimate as provided by the financial institution. So there's no change necessary to what we're doing other than right now it's been a two-part process.
Yeah, the only thing that I want to add to that, thank you, Tucker, is that there was a little bit of discussion about capping certain fees connected with the second closing, whether that be attorney fees, surveyor fees. I don't know where you want to go with that, but there was some discussion specific to that.
There's a separate discussion that we do need to put on an agenda about whether we want to expand what might fall under closing costs that might not be consider necessarily like a traditional closing cost, a well that's required type of thing. So that's a future discussion thing, but you're right. Yes, Eleanor, that was also another part of it. But in terms of the capping the attorney's fees. But as for today, I think we're okay to just proceed, and Ms. Martinez would know that she has up to 15,000 available between both closings.
Okay, so with that noted, Brooke, if you'll phrase it with the way that you feel appropriate.
Okay, so I move that we award $15,000 in closing cost assistance to be utilized for the land acquisition and the creation of the home, closing costs related to the creation of the home.
Second.
So we have a second from Penny by roll call. Dave Iverson.
Aye.
Rima Sherry.
Aye.
Brooke Moore.
Aye.
Penny Dye.
Aye.
Allison Mitchell.
Aye.
And Brian Sullivan. Aye. Ms. Martinez, you're all set. Thank you very much. Sorry we kind of went off track there for a second, but
Congratulations, Esmeralda.
Congrats.
Thank you
Esmeralda.
very much.
Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you.
all right. So either of you can stay on for the meeting if you like, and we won't be offended if you don't. So we'll move on to we move to the next item to a following meeting under other business. We have next meeting dates next week at 1 p.m. and then June 1st at 1 p.m. Does that continue to work for everyone?
You still need to make a motion to continue that item, even though we amended the agenda, because it wasn't noted that way. So,
Okay.
Somebody needs a motion to continue this matter to May 18th, please.
I'll make a motion to continue the matter of the Covenant Formation Assistance Program application for 40 Essex Road till May 18th at our next
Second.
meeting.
And by roll call, Dave, we got that, right? Eleanor, you got it all from Penny?
Yes, was it Brooke who seconded?
Brooke
Yes.
seconded. Now we'll vote. Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Penny Dye,
Aye.
Allison Mitchell,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye. Next item is the meeting schedule. Does that work for everybody? Is there any opposition to it, Brooke?
Can I make note that on Tuesday, the 25th of May, we're planning a housing forum with Fairwinds and a Safe Place to talk to the community about the impacts of housing insecurity on the health of our community from a mental health perspective. And the details of that are being worked up, but it will be a Zoom webinar broadcast live on YouTube and NCTV and available for replay later on YouTube. So mark your calendars, 6 p.m. on the 25th.
Cool. Thank you. Penny?
I just want to say I have to hop off now and I'm going to call back in for executive session.
Great.
I have an
Thank you.
appointment.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess there's no other comments on other business. Go ahead, Tucker.
I had a kind of a public comment.
Okay, so we'll open public comment for a comment from Tucker.
I just wanted to report to the board on the visit from the DHCD folks last week. We were just, very appreciative of Alana Murphy and Rieko Hayashi, making the trip down to Nantucket. They spent a full day here, and I, want to thank everybody who was involved in both the planning and the presentations during the course of the day. We stopped at 8 or 9 different sites. Really had an opportunity to discuss with them everything that is, currently happening or planned to be happening around housing. And, we're just so appreciative of their interest and support for what we're doing here on Nantucket. And, Joe Grouse, Jerry Keneally, really were terrific in being the co-hosts for this. And, we really gave them, I think, a very nice day. I also want to thank the Nantucket Historical Association for making one of their facilities available for us to have a luncheon with these folks while they were here. So I think it's pretty fair to say it couldn't have gone better. And again, appreciate everyone from select board members to town manager Libby Gibson, to all the housing organizations, to the members of this body, the folks from Hall Keene. I want to special shout out to Lori Richards at Beach Plum Village for making her home available to us to show the folks, an example of affordable housing here on Nantucket. It was a really great day. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Sorry, I lost my agenda. Are there any board comments to kind of run through? No, seeing none, we'll close that. The next item, a motion for executive session. Brooke or Rima, I'll leave it to one of the two of you, please.
You want me to read it out loud, or do you have it? I can read it and you can do so moved, Brooke.
Excellent.
Brooke, you're muted.
Run with it, Eleanor, and then
You're
somebody
muted.
Yes.
And I clicking where you are. Where are you? Bring me there.
I found it. I found it.
Okay, go ahead.
I move that we close the open session to go into executive session to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, and not to return to open session.
Second.
And a second from Rima by roll call. Dave Iverson.
Aye.
Rima Sherry.
Aye.
Oh, he froze. Brooke Moore, aye. Allison Mitchell. It's me that froze. No?
Hello?
I don't know.
Can you hear me?
We just
I
had
can hear
a
you.
power loss here.
Yeah, we just had a major power loss.
Nice. Russian hackers. Ah!
Okay.
It's the dark web.
Do we get a quorum to say
No,
we've adjourned?
we did. Because I say yes, that's 3. So that's good. That's fine. We can adjourn,
We need
right?
4, right?
Oh, Brian.
need
Yeah, we need 4. We have. Yeah, we have. Oh, they're frozen.
Yeah, they're all frozen.
Press people.
Oh, everyone left.
There they go. Why is it that that's weird.
I know. Well, you're in Vermont, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so it must have been all of Nantucket that went down, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The lights just, I think we're on emergency generation, Eleanor and I.
Crazy.
Oh, which means no one else is going to be able to come back.
That's not good.
If they don't have internet, shoot.
All right, why don't we, I think they might assume that we left here, so we'll try the other one.
We'll just the roll call vote. You saw everybody shaking their heads, right, Eleanor?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, that was 4 yeses, right, Eleanor?
I mean, that's an internet failure. I can't